Light. Welcome. Look at this. We have everybody. This is bananas. Look, 3 up here, 3 down there. There's 6 of us. This is so great. It's so wonderful to have us all in one place. Welcome to Light Magic AI Applied. I'd like to introduce Meet Smarter, not harder. That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to jump right into use cases. If you're like, who are these people? Go back and watch our little intro one. And we did a little getting to know you sesh. But today we want to jump right into use cases to help you work smarter, not harder. See what we did there? That's what we're doing. So let's jump right in. Let's get into it. Sarah, do you want to kick us off with what we're going to be looking at first out of the gate?
Yeah, we decided to do Meet Smarter, Not Harder as a multi-part series because no matter what you do, whether you're working for yourself or you work for an organization or you run an organization, everybody has to do meetings, right? And there's so many different aspects to meetings. So what we thought we'd do is like show and demonstrate, which is part of this AI Applied series, how we're actually using AI to help us with our meeting process and making that a smarter way, not a harder way to do meetings. So today we're actually going to talk about research and like researching and preparing for meetings. So I know whether you're in sales or you're pulling together presentations, a large part of your time and your mental energy is spent researching. So researching your client and their organization and what they've been up to and their social media and their YouTube and all of the different channels to build like a global idea of what is going on for the client or the person so that you can be like best prepared to put your best foot forward. And so, as you can imagine, that's a very time-consuming process. It takes up a lot of mental energy and mental space. And so what we have started to implement as part of our own processes with meeting preparation is we've built different things to do with AI, including a research agent to be able to do that for us. So without like going too broadly into that, I'll let Tyler come online and explain a little bit about how we approach that and some examples of what we've built to help us with this process.
Yeah, so thank you, Zara. We've done a bunch of different things on the back end, and we've even tailored them and mapped this like pre-meeting prep stuff for the client-facing things to specific use cases. So what I mean by that is that we had some clients that were reaching out to us to help them do like a thought leadership content campaign. And so we had put together a package around that uses AI to do that. And when we were doing the discovery calls for people that were interested in that, we set up this workflow that would go out and look up these people, their company, all that stuff, and bring that back as pre-meeting intel. Because basically, like Anne, when we were talking about this before, we would have like an executive assistant or someone on the team that would go and do that manually. And that takes a lot of time. And now we're able to like essentially have like an autonomous AI research agent go out on the internet with very little information to go on so that we show up to that meeting really prepped and know any sort of like important to know information before we get there. So for as an example, let me just go ahead and share my screen. Let's just get on into this thing. Okay, let me do that, bring that up. Bear with me, here we go. So let's go share. And let's bring this online. There we go. Okay, so let me switch over here. So what this is basically we're able to either manually put this in or have this tied into an automation so that when we book a meeting in like Zoom or it shows up in our Google Calendar, that we're able to extract the business website. If we don't have the business website, we can have it actually go out and find the URL for the business and then repopulate that in here. We pull the client name in. We pull their LinkedIn URL to their profile and their company name. So I just did this as a quick demo. And then what we get downstream from that is that agent goes out and reads all the information on the website, on the client's LinkedIn, on the, what else do we have up here? We had, their website. It goes and does a briefing on their website, pulls all that in here. And this particular one is taking that and then giving us alignment or ways that we could map it to that thought leadership product, essentially, that we were going through. And so this can all come to us like as detailed as it is right here, or on the back end. Let me come back in here because that's in preview mode. This is what the spell looks like. So the inputs are basically just those ones that you saw out there. It runs through all of these different prompts, and then it can also land in Slack. So we'll get that Slack summary that can show up as soon as it runs, like as soon as someone books it, or we could have it set up so it shows up like the day before. That's completely up to the client of how they want that to work, essentially.
Tyler, when you say spell, is that an automation that I'm seeing there? What is that?
It is, yeah. I guess I jumped around.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
I'm
so this is one
that.
of our daily carry uses here, and Respell is one of our apps that we build a lot of our stuff in. They actually just did their official launch this week. So congratulations, Respell team, Matt, Connor, Bailey, Harpira, all y'all have been amazing. Highly recommend them if you're in this space. So a quick plug there. But yeah, like they are the ones that allow us to be able to do things like this, because if we zoom in on this, like not only do we have this autonomous AI research agent that can go out and look at Google, it can research Google News, it can look at YouTube for video searches to find videos and transcribe them. It can bring all of that information as contextual information that can then go through like a Claude prompt, or GPT is in here with OpenAI. The Azure models are in here. Cohere is even in here, which is kind of bananas because I don't think I've ever seen that natively show up with inside an app. And then some of the new things that they've brought out is HubSpot, Salesforce, all of these kind of integrations. So think if you run this spell, you can take all this information that it gathers on pre-meeting information and also pipe that back into your CRM. So it lives there for next meeting follow-ups. And so the way that we've been able to use this, I won't name drop who it was, but we worked with a client. Let me stop sharing my screen so we can all come back up here for a minute. We worked with a client who is a university president, and they have to give how do we say it? Daily content briefs essentially to the university and through their social media. And we wanted to try and find information on this person. We already knew a good deal about them just because they're a personal friend. So we were able to like actually know if what was coming back was good or not. We tested the limits of this. Like this is someone who has a lot of content out there, but not necessarily is someone that you're going to see a bunch of like famous quote cards out there. But we wanted it to find really high quality quotes from things that this person had said that are out on the internet. It went out and found it. It found a YouTube video of like a graduation speech, read the transcript of that, and pulled out a snippet of a quote that was fire and brought that back. That like, even if we had a person going doing that in Ann's like executive assistant example, like the chances of them finding that are slim to none. Like seriously, that is some deep level intel.
And Tyler, how long did that take once you hit run? What's the turnaround time for that type of research?
Like a minute or two.
And how
long do you think that would take as a human? Yeah, sorry. We're in like beep, beep, same brain.
Yeah.
You say it, Sarah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask the question of how long do you think that whole process would have taken from start to finish if someone had gone out and done that?
And I bet you can answer that, like, because you had someone that was helping do this sort of stuff, right?
Yeah. And oh, by the way, my internet is like super. So tell me if I'm going out, but more to the point, it's the quality of the prep that we can do now. That, you know, when you're going, like, let's say you're going into a sales meeting or a donor meeting, you do not have 2 hours research. You have, like I always say, I'll give it 12 minutes. That's it. I don't for a dissertation. I have time to get my head right and know some factoids, go into it with an open, curious mind, and the quality scan all those things in 12 minutes. That's the magic for me. Let alone if I'm paying an admin or there's an opportunity cost. I mean, they hours for sure to do a briefing. They would do a briefing for a meeting like this.
And would they get that same kind of info, do you think? Like the level of detail on that? Maybe.
Only
like, what's the chance of like?
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, okay. 10%. Let's put it into like
the thing that's huge here, though, right, is that person would have to do that every time, right? Those 2 hours are every time. Whereas with this, once you set it up, even if it takes you 4 hours to set it up, every time you do it thereafter, it's 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if it's already built, there's no setup, right? It's just you just plug and play.
It's a one-time setup, and then you can repeat it quickly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And what I love about what Ann was saying too, and like, in my experience in moderating a lot of conversations and interviewing people from all different walks of industries, all over the tech sectors, I always want to do my research on people. And because that way, research creates confidence, so I can show up. And it also creates a level of respect with whoever I'm talking to, because they know I did my homework. And then they're like, oh, I'm not just another voice on a screen to this person. This person actually is invested in who I am, what I've done. And it's very powerful, when having that research under my belt to talk to anybody, because then it just flows. It just flows because then we have something to talk about that isn't just like, hey, let me tell you about my sales pitch or whatever it is,
Yeah, for sure. Like that's what I was even pulling up just to answer your question. So it took 128 seconds to run that. And I was looking for the cost, and Respell just shipped some updates. So the cost is not directly in there, but I know from before when we were running this, it was like 50 cents at the most compared to like, and we're talking about how much are you paying someone to do that job for hours. It's got to be at least.
Yeah. And the other thing, like in fundraising, briefings are amazing on the briefings to provide leadership back in a donor meeting. And it goes through like 5 or 6 layers of approval because it's that you've gotten enough information to prepare the leader. And then what happens is the leader doesn't read it, which is demoralizing for the staff. So something like this that takes it out to like a third party, totally objective, personalized, not done, you know what I mean? No one's feelings are going to be hurt, is beautiful for culture.
And if, let's say, folks in that sector have this tool, we wouldn't want to remove those people from work, right? This is a tool to help those people. So if they have this, what happens to those people that used to do this research manually?
Yeah. So what they might be able to do instead is get people together, conversation, instead of spending, 10 hours and layers of approval. Nobody ever gets to have an iterative conversation. All that happens is we're moving paper around. So now we can sit down and have a heartfelt, intentional conversation, including stuff we would never put on paper, right? We can talk about people's health. We could talk about their relationship with their children. We could talk about their fears and their hopes and their dreams, which we would never put in a briefing. So because we've saved all that time, not to mention that a lot of people are doing this work off the side of their desk. They have other work that eats up their 40 hours, and they're also doing this. Good question.
Right.
Well, and to like even take that a step further, Hunter, is like when they get this information, like the person that was gathering the information can now help like map that to the whatever the service or the product or the offering is that you're going to we're going to be providing in that, because that's how we've been using this. Like, we tailor this so that when we show up, we either show up with like an actual MVP mock-up build of like a chat bot or some sort of an AI automation that gives our clients that AI light bulb that goes off of like what's possible.
Yeah.
But that could work for any industry. So that person who's now freed up from doing all that gathering can now, that's where they could transition into.
Yeah, I think it like frees up all that time to focus your mental energy on the more strategic conversation and the things that AI can't really do for you. So I think that that's one of the biggest benefits that we've seen is like we are now free to actually put our mental energy to in more strategic ways than we were previously, because we were doing all the running around and the researching and things like that. So are there any other use cases that the team want to like discuss around meeting prep?
Yeah, let me tee off one for Hunter, because something we've worked on when we were discovering this same use case was not only doing the research to gather information about the person we're going to be talking to, but also then using that information to inform our meeting prep for like questions and agenda items and conversation points. Hunter, could you talk a little bit about that solution? Because you were a big part of bringing that together inside this solution.
Totally. And that was actually Anne and I that did it together, because Anne pitched an idea just for a prompt. And then I was off. I was like, oh, cool. Let me go play with that. I was like, Anne, I built us a thing. You had a brilliant idea. And what it does is we call it VIP and me. And what it does is it does the research part. And this was the MVP of the idea originally. So we didn't have research agents per se yet. It was doing a Google's, or it was accessing the internet. It was doing the research. Now it's much more advanced, but zooming back, it would go do research on someone you were talking to. And it was a simple chatbot experience. So it'd say, so who are you interviewing today? You would say, who? You say, what is the topic? Say, great. And then it would go do, and it would say, are there any links that you want to provide to point me towards specifically? And you go, great, these three. And what it would do is it would go do the research on the person and the topic, and then create potential interview questions, or it could be questions you have in a donor meeting if you're looking for that, or it could be a sales pitch. So you do your research on the person, and it's essentially a prompt to give human prompts to prompt us what to ask people. And it was really fun because we created this, and then it really snowballed to this next level experience that y'all have made now.
I love that. Thanks for sharing it. Something in the chat that it's probably worth talking about with our whole crew. Scott says AI is an enhancement for and an accelerant for workers, not a replacement. And okay, perfect. Thanks for bringing that up. That whole concept is something we've thought a ton about, and we end up talking about all the time when we go into these intensives, when we're speaking with clients, when we're getting a feel for the business. So many people are fearful about what could be if you're an administration person and your job was to prep for meetings, what next, right? What happens to that role or those tasks if an automation like this comes through and your team starts adopting it? And now what can you do about and the conversation around the whole body of work is where we'll start. Everybody has so much on their plates with the way that our work culture is, oftentimes far more than what we can get to within the week. Could you, Michael, talk a little bit to the kind of our ethos and heartbeat behind freeing up people's time and unlocking their, kind of day-to-day to some of the more valuable things that they can be focused on?
Yeah, well, some of the things I think we've already mentioned, right, where you're freeing up people's time either to do work they haven't been able to get to. So, most people have a list of things that they want to be able to do but can't get to it because there's a lot of, mundane but essential tasks that need to get done first. So like the creative work sort of goes away. I do think that companies, like really big companies that have scaled by adding people, I think ultimately they will shed people, but most businesses are not that, right? And so I think there's this real great opportunity for companies that are interested in growing, that they'll be able to, take off some of this repetitive work. The people they have can now start to help grow the business instead of keeping the business going. And as you scale, you'll need to add fewer people. So it's not about taking jobs away, but you won't need to add as many jobs in order to scale. So you'll be able to compete. I think you'll be able to compete with companies much bigger than you with the help of having sort of AI sort of running some of these things in the background for you.
Crickets. Mic drops from Michael.
I'm over here in the comments trying to answer. Yes. And
Oh yeah, what's firing?
Anne said you could 100% do this in a GPT too, like talking to Christina. You definitely could. Like if you didn't want this to be entirely automated and you wanted it to be like a co-pilot for you, you could set up a GPT that's like meeting prep and walk through that builder to do that. And with it being connected to the internet, I mean, yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's what like our original version was, right? Before there was custom GPTs, right, Anne?
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. So like what I do probably 90% of the time, because I'm doing like quick and dirty, is I've just got a prompt in there that goes out and pulls some information. I might grab a URL from a website, like a bio, a couple of other little tidbits in the moment that I'm like, ooh, I want to grab that, and just get a little, summary like this and just read it really fast. And even that for me, because everybody has their own approach to like an interview or a meeting. And that's what's so beautiful about these tools, is that it's totally scalable to like whatever extreme version you want. Like you can do a light touch, you could do the cheap and cheerful approach, you could do the respell approach, you could do whatever works for your brain and your work group. So like, for example, if anybody on the call wants my prompt for meeting prep, because you just want to do something quick, just DM me. But part of the reason why I use a light touch, just thinking about like culture and like how we show up comfortable in our own skin. Part of the reason why I use a light touch is because what I find is that like if I know too much, I lose my curiosity about that person. And I want to approach it a little bit clueless, like a little bit, so that I can ask those good questions, those probing questions without feeling like I'm being fake, because I've already done all the research. But like in some cases, you have to have all the research. So it's like the beautiful thing about these tools is, like Sarah always talks about, do like the baby step, do 1% better, right? And it compounds. And then soon what you see is turn that, Sarah, you talked about the other day, like you turn your task into a process, which then becomes like how you do business, right? That's what you said, something like that.
Yeah, it's essentially like, I think that for a lot of people, because AI just seems so ubiquitous across everywhere and everything right now, that people think that that's the approach that they need to take with AI and integrating it into their business. Whereas what we like to do and we like to suggest is that, you have to think strategically about how you approach AI, but perhaps you can just start with one particular use case. Like isolate one small use case that is a really time-consuming, difficult, repetitive process that if you were to free up your time from doing that, what else could you achieve? And so once you isolate that particular use case and really start to understand how you can delegate that to a certain extent to an AI system, and then you can start stacking those things, like those different use cases one on top of the other, until you have like a workflow that is essentially delegated to AI and a process that's essentially delegated to AI. And I will like put a disclaimer on that, is like Anne was saying, we like to have a human involved in the process so that you can keep an eye, or you can like manage the AI system to ensure that it is doing the work that you're asking it to do to the level that you are expecting of it. So all of that to say is that the AI adoption process doesn't have to be like this big, hairy, scary thing, even though it might seem that way. That you can really start with small use cases and build up your kind of AI muscle, so to speak, within your business that way.
I think that's so important, Sarah. You got to take the baby steps and the small wins. We talk about that a lot, right? Like you need actionable small wins because it's easy to be like, we'll automate everything. Everything's taken care of. 1 day work week. Someone said, can we get to a 4-day work week? And I hope so. I think it's possible, but that's not going to happen overnight, right? Like we need to do little step-by-step, baby steps, actionable things, and also the roadmap, right? So I think it's important that, we can map out what we're going to do. And luckily, we're offering that for friends, where we can help you and your company and your team. If you're looking to go into 2024 and you want to build a roadmap for the year ahead, we are taking calls for the rest of the month because we are already booked out amazingly, booked and blessed on builds this month, this year. But we are doing intakes and roadmap strategies, and you get some fun resources when you chat with us, because it won't be what we all decided is there's not going to be any chit chat. We're going to get right into it right out of the gate, because guess what we're going to do? We're going to use some of those tools on you before we hop on the call, and we're going to know what's going on, and you're also going to tell us what you want to do. So I would love to hear maybe a bit more about from Sarah or Tyler about the brainchild of this too, of what people can expect walking away from, or during this call and walking away from it.
I could popcorn to you, Tyler.
Okay, all right. I was going to ask if you were. I was going to give you first shot at it. Well, I mean, so the idea behind this is that when we've gone and done discovery calls or talked to businesses, both locally and just folks that we've met through the internet, it's really figuring out, how do I actually apply AI? Like, what are the real use cases in my business? How does that make sense? And that people don't know what they don't know. And so that's where this is a way, a cheap and cheerful way, as Anne likes to say, for us to be able to walk through some questions with you all with a pre-meeting questionnaire, which of course is like an AI chatbot. Who wouldn't expect that? And it also ties into this meeting prep kind of thing of what we've been talking about today. It will go, the answers that you put into that go through some prompt chains that help us prepare for that meeting, so that when we show up, we already have a lot of use cases identified based off of the pain points, the industry that you're in. And we give you at the end a blueprint for how you can bring AI into your work in 2024, like a strategy, basically. So it's going to be a mix of things that are real easy, low-hanging fruit wins, all the way to, do you want to go to the deep end with it, and everything in between. So, yeah. Sorry, what else do you want to add? I know I've left a bunch of stuff out there for sure.
No, I think that you covered pretty much most of it. So we are, like Hunter mentioned, offering this to help businesses and business owners and organizations and teams have the clarity that they need walking into the new year, because I think that everybody, or most people, are starting to recognize how important AI is in terms of the future of their work and the future of their business. And really the intention behind us offering this is to give you that clarity and like a roadmap of how you can approach this with, in a customized way. That's not like a boilerplate presentation on what AI is and all of the abstract stuff. It's actually taking the abstract and making it real for you. So if that resonates, you can DM anybody on the team. Hit me up on my DMs, and we'd be really happy to have a conversation around this.
Yes. And oh my gosh, it's almost time. 29 minutes and 40 seconds. I love to end promptly. You see what I did there? Yeah, dad jokes. I promise some. But we're going to keep the conversation going tomorrow. So you can join us with Bites, B-Y-T-E-S, and Banter, Bites and Banter. we're just a very punny group, and we just need to entertain ourselves so that we don't go crazy, because we're talking about AI all day long, but we love it. So it's fun. Tomorrow is Bites and Banter. It's you'll see the posting on LinkedIn as well. It's 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's an hour. We're calling it an AI open mic featuring you and us. So this is where we can like hang out. You can hop on camera, hop on mic, and we can just shoot the breeze. You can ask your use case questions, your pain points. We're just gonna hang out. We're gonna bite. We're gonna banter. We're gonna find out some solutions. So join us tomorrow. Friends, this has been so great. Sarah, Michael, Tyler, Josh, Ann, and I'm Hunter. Thank you all for making the time today. So great.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.